Indiana Disability History Project, Indiana Institute on Disability and Community, Indiana University. Breaking Down Barriers. Ric Edwards.
Some of the people who have been involved in the ADA in Indiana, Jim and Frida Paula, even before the ADA was there. Of course, Sue Ellen Jackson Bonner has done a great deal of work, positive work. Christine and Paul and the whole crowd there at the Governor's Planning Council. The people who have been doing the work, there have been people with disabilities and people without disabilities. I think of Mayor Goldsmith and even our current governor making those inroads, not because they had anybody necessarily with a disability on their mind, but because they recognized that it was the right thing to do. I hate to mention people by name because there are so many times you'll forget so many of the folks. Of course, most recently we've lost Sharon Burkett, and she was a real advocate. There are people like Nancy Griffin, like Costa Miller. Oh golly, that you know, again, I hate to mention them because there are so many others that are not getting mentioned. Norton Brown, another name that people may not recognize, that's been around forever and making those changes before we even had an ADA. When I went to Ball State, my alma mater, I broke down some barriers there with the disability community and was able to make some significant changes there. And it was kind of humorous. I went back a few years later after I graduated from Ball State and talked with Rich Harris, who was the disability coordinator there at Ball State. And he was kind of chuckling and saying, you know, you'd really get a laugh out of this. They were complaining, the students were complaining about the lack of an accessible drinking fountain at the student center. And what was so funny about that was that we had such a struggle getting the administration to understand that we should have access into the student center. And now they're complaining about the fact that they couldn't get a drink there. It shows that we have come quite a ways. There are still lots of things that need to be done. We're not at all saying that we're in a utopia because we have the ADA. We have a lot of work that has to be done. We have a lot of things that, a lot of barriers that need to be removed. Most importantly, we have a lot of people that need to become more educated about what this is all about. Being a person with a disability is something that can happen to anybody, anytime, anywhere. Knows no sex, knows no race, knows no age. And so any one of us can become one of us at any time. And so that's why the ADA is so important to the whole world. It is something that is going to change minds as well as break down the barriers. Of course, right now in this day and age, 2009, everybody is struggling with employment. It's much more significant for people with disabilities just because you've got the additional barriers that employers have towards people with disabilities. They don't understand many times what people with disabilities can do. And so the ADA, and I've said this before, the ADA is really a tool that needs to be used correctly so that people with disabilities can get the jobs that they need and can remove the barriers that need to be removed. My biggest concern with the ADA is that it will be used incorrectly, and because of that damage some of the work that's been done. I have a difficult time sometimes when people try and use the ADA as a club rather than a tool to encourage folks to understand what's necessary and what should be being done. Not to mention, or not to say rather, that the ADA can't be used as a club. It may sometimes have to be used as a club because there are people sometimes who just, for whatever reason, don't get it. And so it's good to have that arsenal there, but it shouldn't be abused. It should be like I said, used in the correct way to try and get folks to understand. Again, you could be joining this group. A person with a disability is somebody who may or may not have had that disability their entire life, and so it's something that, again, I hope that the ADA is something that encourages people rather than beats people into submission. As we're getting close to the signing, the 20th anniversary of the signing of the ADA, the most significant change has to be the mindset that has been changed, because that has much more of an impact than any kind of brick and mortar changes or programmatic changes, because that's where the whole problem starts, is in the minds of people. And so the ADA has been most valuable for changing some of those minds about people with disabilities in general. I can remember going to a grocery store one time with, I use a wheelchair, and of course going around the grocery store there are always lots of little kids. And I like little kids. I'm on their same level physically and mentally sometimes. So, I enjoy little kids. There was a little boy that was walking with his mom, and he was seeing my chair, and of course it sticks out, and it's interesting to little kids. And he was kind of pulling on his mom and pointing, and I knew he wanted to ask a question. He's looking at me and asking, what's that? Why is he doing that? And the mom was just pulling him away, trying to get him to not even recognize that I was there, trying to move away, I don't know, because she thought it was rude or something like that. And I thought, oh, shoot, you've got to let the kid ask these questions, because that's how he's going to learn. And I don't recall right now if that was before the ADA or after. I think it was after. But I thought that's one of the things that's most important about the ADA, is that it changed people's perceptions about asking somebody with a disability, is it okay if I open this door for you? Is it okay if, do you need some help doing whatever? Again, the ADA brings that to the fore and lets people feel a little more comfortable, be a little more ready to ask the questions. What can we do to remove a barrier? Is there a barrier here?
Music, Redwood Trail, recorded at the 2009 Indiana Governor's Council for People with Disabilities Conference. Produced by Indiana Institute on Disability and Community, Center for Health Equity, funded in part by the Indiana Governor's Council for People with Disabilities. Copyright 2018, the Trustees of Indiana University.